Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Friday morning trading session. We just saw the markets open here a moment ago. Just a moment, and we'll review what's been going on. Yesterday, it took a while, but the market started to fall off a little bit, and we finally, that E-mini trade that we were nursing, we finally got it into a profitable position. Prices fell off a little bit and then just kind of held that whole zone, the support around the 53.60 area. The Asian session and the European session, just, you can see, deadly quiet, nothing going on. I suppose technically we opened with a slight gap above us, which we will probably see the market try to fill. But it looks like we're in another chop zone. You can see we had some yellow bars here, introducing some more yellow bars here on the hawk. Technically, this is a first micro-macro cross higher, but we're only 1 or 2 minutes into the session. I don't think I'm going to hop on that order just yet, although it does look like we are going to try to put in a little bit of a rally to start. Gold looking a little bit bearish. Let's see what we have going on here in the gold market. Okay, a moment ago, just before the North American Open, or just around the North American Open of the stock market, gold actually opens way back here. We had a cloud crossover signal form. So gold looking like it's going to try to head lower today. Maybe. Good morning, Christian. Christian's asking, good morning, Eric. Does the PMI news in 30 minutes have an influence on the YM or the NQ? So that's the mini Dow or the NASDAQ. Probably. I'm a big believer that the news fits the market. Although we very often will see the market make some sort of move on the release of a report, the real big ones, the only ones that really seem to hold surprises anymore, are the FOMC and if you're trading the agricultural commodities, the WASDE. Those are the ones that sometimes catch the market on its heels. The PMI, of course, is a manufacturing report, but I think the market already has a fair indication of which way that report is going to come out. That's just my opinion, of course. As you guys know, I'm woefully ignorant of most reports. I just trade what's going on the chart, although I do try to pay a little bit more attention to FOMC days. But even then, it's usually reflected in the charts as well because the market will just keep going sideways. It will be very non-committal. Just glancing here at crude oil, looks like we had a few counter trend signals printing, 1, 2, 3, and then it finally got some traction. Even here, though, it's starting to look like maybe we've got a little bit of a sideways range going on. Okay, we'll see whether we get a cloud crossover signal here on the Raptor. That's what I'm looking for now. Maybe another trend line touch here on the Falcon. And we could be waiting for a while here on the Eagle because we haven't really seen a retest of this low, have we? And then here on the Hawk, we'll be waiting for maybe a macro pullback. So we do have a resistance line here at 53.66. That's going to be very close to these lows that we encountered here yesterday. These are going to be around the 53.65.66 area. You can see the market broke out or broke through and then retested 1, 2, 3 times before falling off again. So what are we doing back here? I think we're going to see another little reaction. Or could see another reaction. Obviously, there's some sensitivity there. Otherwise, we're just waiting, watching and waiting. I don't know, Christian, maybe you're right. Maybe this will be a more influential strategy. Or strategy, sorry. Multitasking here. Maybe this will be a more influential report. Oh, and I see Yellen is due to speak this afternoon or later this morning, so that's going to put a little bit of a nix in the schedule. Hmm. Just looking at some of the news headlines, and it could be that the market will be waiting on Yellen. There's one headline here: the Fed could be on the verge of making a big mistake. Will Yellen douse the rate flame? Dollar gains as U.S. March rate hike seems more likely. So, yeah, I don't know if the report, if the PMI is going to be the big one, or whether the market is going to wait on Yellen. That's an interesting observation here from Christian. Christian says, interesting, I feel that my Raptor system gives me more successful entry signals as the Hawk system does in the NASDAQ and the YM because the trades run longer. That's probably because at its core, the bulk of the signal generation comes from the Falcon. You're going to see a lot of Falcon trades. Oops. Falcon trades and Raptor, oh darn it, Raptor trades coincide. Not all of them, but quite a few. The Raptor does have its own set of parameters, but a lot of that will be running off the Falcon. So what I'm getting at is by its nature, the Falcon tends to target slightly larger moves anyhow. course. Natalia is asking Eric. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Natalia. Natalia asks, could you review again signals without signal number 2 when the market is in reverse? All right, well here, let's just kind of go over all the signals. And I see what you're looking at here, Natalia. You're probably thinking, why did I not get a number 2 signal printing right here? And that's a very good question, because you're right, I would have seen that as a number 2 as well. Now, you have to bear in mind that the Raptor is a computing algorithm. There is no gray area in a computer program. I don't know how many of you have ever tried your hand at writing a program for Ninja, but there is no gray area. It either is or it is not. So that's why we need to be aware of what these signals look like and what generates them, because sometimes the market may not tick far enough one way or the other to actually produce a signal. Now that said, before I get into the signals themselves, remember, if you feel you're missing signals that the Raptor should be printing, you can go into your Raptor and you can adjust the sensitivity of it. The higher this value becomes, the less sensitive or the less picky the Raptor will be in producing your number 2 signals. The smaller this value becomes, the less picky the Raptor will be in producing your number 2 signals. Now, we just don't want to be producing signals left, right, and center, because we still want to focus on quality signals. The number 2 signal is our counter trend signal. It tends to develop when the band gets really overextended. Those are going to be the easiest ones to follow. So for instance, let me back up here. I think we had a pretty big band right here. Yeah, here we go. So when you're looking at this and your band is starting to get very wide, if you were running an oscillator like a stochastic or an RSI or any type of these type of oscillating indicators, you would see that the oscillator was very, very overbought. Now, as you know, an overbought indicator or market condition on an oscillator does not mean the market needs to reverse. In fact, the indicator probably got overbought way back here, and you can see how far the rally still continued. So that's why, you know, you need to take the information from an oscillator with a grain of salt, but we're not talking about that right now. The number 2 signal is the counter trend signal. So 2 components for a counter trend. You need to have a trend preceding it. Then you need to have a test of the extreme. In this case, the extreme would be the high, and a failure. You need some sort of indication that the trend is no longer going to continue. Once you have that, you have a number 2 signal. Now, typically, when we get the test of the extreme, it will come up a little bit short of the high or the low, whatever the case may be. Here is an instance where we broke the high, but just barely, and then we came back with a number 2 signal. So this is still a valid test of the extreme. It's still showing you that the market cannot continue higher. And again, it's going to be easier to spot when the bands get really, really wide. Our target then becomes the hard edge of the trading band. And you can see that's where we came down, and the market starts to flounder a little bit, and away we go. So let's compare that with what's going on here this morning. Do we have a trend? Yeah, I think so. I think it's fair to say the market is in a little bit of a downtrend. Have we had a test of the extreme, a retest of the lows? Yes, I think so. I think we've had one right there. So if you were trading the overnight, you actually had your first counter trend signal print right here. For the North American session, however, have we had a trend? Yes. Have we had a retest of the extreme? Yes. That would have occurred right here. And then coming into the session, we printed our counter trend signal right there. So you are correct, Natalia. That is a number 2 signal. Now you can see what's different between this one and the one that I showed you just earlier is that this one is already printing at the hard edge. So if the hard edge is our profit objective, is this all the profit we're going to get? No, not really. If we've seen a proper retest of the lows, and it's looking like the market is going to fail, it will blur the hard edge, because what is probably happening here is we're probably looking at maybe a possible trend change. You see the clouds are starting to cross again, but you should be able to get at least your profit objective out of a trade like this. The number 1 signal is when the clouds cross. Here, let me go back a little bit further so I can find you something that looks a little bit more textbook. The moves have been so abrupt of late. Oh, all right. Well, here's actually a good one that didn't. Well, okay. I see the crossover came late. All right. Give me just one more day. Okay. Here, this one's not bad. All right. So here we are. Cloud crossover. The clouds are essentially changing direction, is your cloud crossover signal. So it's going to develop out of a period when the market is reversing, or more likely it's going to develop out of a period like this where the market is conflicted. The clouds are going to be twisted up like a rope, and out of this we're going to get our number 1 signal produce. So what happens is the clouds change direction, so we go from an up cloud to a down cloud, or pardon me, from a down cloud to an up cloud. Or a period of neutrality. The important part, or the part that I like to see, is once again the market retreating into the cloud and then coming out. This whole little pattern of these little up and down movements, all they're showing you is that the buyers are recommitting to the market. So the buyers committed to the market here, they recommitted to the market here. So if I'm going to be a buyer now, well, this is where I want to buy. Okay, here's a number 1 signal that actually printed a little bit late because the clouds weren't crossed over quite enough. The signal actually ended up printing up here. But I would have considered this a cloud crossover. The clouds are crossing over. It's retreating back into the cloud. It's a hard edge bounce at the same time, and then it comes out and produces your signal. Now the Raptor programming has a little added feature built into it, so it really monitors what's going on with the clouds. So sometimes you'll look at it and you'll say, why is that a cloud crossover signal? But most times, you can trust the signal even though you may end up taking a little bit of heat on it, but it will eventually have some follow through to it. The number 3 signal is our hard edge bounce signal. It's our trend continuation signal. And it's going to develop when we already have something that's at least resembling a trend. So you'll want to pay attention to your, in this case, swing lows. We want it to look like, come on, computer, there we go. We want it to look like the market is trying to make higher lows and that it's trying to make higher highs. You see here we actually had matching highs, which when that developed would look a little bit bearish. But then when the market came back and the buyers started buying earlier, then that's a sign of bullishness. Right? Whoever controls the last swing controls the market. And until that reverses, as it does here, you can anticipate prices to continue in the direction that they're going. All right, so that's your number 3 signal. It will print at or near the hard edge of either band. Soft edge signals a little less predictable unless the market is just crazy out of control. The better ones will tend to produce on pullbacks as well. All right, so now we are kind of looking at maybe hunting for the lows. We're getting a little bit of a reaction now to that 53.65 area. Peter's asking, in a situation where you have taken a Raptor signal and a conflicting signal prints, what is your thought process? All right, so we are, we're taking a trend change or a continuation signal here, the hard edge bounce. So we get in, and let's say we choose to cover above this swing high right there, and there's our trade. And a few minutes later, we produce a number 2 signal. So Peter asks, well, what is your thought process? What's going on in your head when you see that? Usually, if there's a dominant trend, I always try to trade with the trend as much as possible. The number 2 signal, of course, is the counter trend signal. So it does open up the possibility that the market is going to head the opposite direction. I try not to panic. I think that's why it's very important that you make this risk amount here something that you're comfortable with, so that you don't panic on the trade. And if your stop is far enough away, you can be reasonably sure you're going to get at least one chance to adjust your trade. So at this point, if the market starts heading higher on me, I'm just thinking, okay, somewhere through here, the sellers are going to show up and they're going to try to knock the market down again. Let's say they get up here to the primary resistance line, or pardon me, primary support line, and they turn the market, especially if I get 2 bars in my favor, then that shows a real commitment on the part of the sellers. So at that point, I'll bring my stop down to here. And now, depending on how I feel how the market is unfolding, if the bars are moving, at a reasonable pace, I'll hold my stop, because there's going to be another reaction here, right? The buyers are going to try to rally the market up again. They broke the high, this little swing high. They are going to try to rally one more time. So my objective is not to get stopped out here unless I really, really have to. And if the sellers come back again, well, then I can roll my stop in, and now it's really do or die for the sellers. Because if the sellers can't hold on to the market now and at least make a decent move lower, it will reverse and either range or stop me out. So at this point, I'll move to like a parabolic strategy or something more aggressive, the bar high low, and I will run my stops a little bit tighter. I may hold them here as we, encounter other support again, but this is usually that time when you're going to see the market try to really put it into gear. So I don't know if that's helpful, Peter. Like I say, I think it's important not to panic. If the market did reverse and just went straight up and hit my stop loss, well, okay, it happens. Fortunately, it doesn't happen all that often, but you will find yourself on the wrong side of a trade. That's just the nature of the business. You try to do your best to pick the trades that look the most promising. And that's really all we can do. We set our risk exposure to an amount that's not going to ruin us if we're wrong. And we just try to manage the trade the best that we can. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. It's this whole 53.65 area. Yeah, see, the PMI report came out. It was supposed to be an important report, but nothing's going on. I think the stock market is waiting for Yellen. Christian asks, Eric, what is your setting on the Raptor here for the extreme retest? All right, so down here you can adjust your number 3 signal. The HE means hard edge, SE is soft edge. So the soft edge is actually your number 2 signal. It's your soft edge buy or sell. The hard edge, the number 3, is the hard edge bounce. The extreme sensitivity or extreme retest sensitivity, this is the factor that the Raptor will use to determine whether you've had a test of the extreme or not. By default, it's set at 1 or 1.01. I think Ben did that just so that you would know you could do decimal places. But the one day when we were using the Raptor, it seemed like it wasn't printing the number 2 signal. So we dialed it up a little bit. And 1.25 seemed to be working. If I go to 1.5, let's see how that changes the signals. Oh, still didn't get a number 2 here. All right, so let's change now the value of the minimum bars. Let's dial that down from 5 to 3. Aha, there we go. There's our number 2. So if you're trading a chart and it seems like you're missing a lot of number 2 signals or something that you would have deemed to be a number 2, if you miss one once in a while, that's okay. It's just like I say, the programming, maybe the chart, the price didn't go quite high enough or low enough. But if you're looking at your chart and you seem to be missing a lot of number 2 signals, you may want to play with those settings. Now look at what happens here. Now all of a sudden we're printing number 2 signals all over the place. And yet most of these number 2 signals do not have any follow through. So we don't want that either. If that's the case, if you're looking at a chart and you're printing number 2 signals all over the place and there's no follow through on any of them, that's no good. So that tells you your settings are too sensitive and you need to go back and you need to alter those. To try to eliminate some of those false signals. Now the 1.25 and the 5 bar setup seems to be working pretty well for the most part. You can see it's still not going to eliminate all the number 2s. If this bothers you, well then what you can do is you can adjust your signal again. Oops, sorry. Let's go back here. We'll make it just 1. How did that do? Oh, still there. So let's adjust it a little bit more. Let's require, say, a 7 bars. There you go. So you can see we have eliminated some of the false number 2 signals by making stricter parameters for the Raptor to follow. The Raptor 2.0 is much more tweakable than previous versions. So you can adjust it to your own preferences. If there's one thing about trading that's true, it is a very personal profession. Nobody can tell you that you need to do it this way or that way because, hey, at the end of the day, it's your money that's on the line. Right? It's easy for me to say, well, you should do this. I'd be happy to spend your money for you. But at the end of the day, it is your money. So you have to do what you think is best. If the settings seem too loose, then tighten them up. If they seem too tight, then go ahead, loosen them up a bit. Okay, so Peter asks, all right, Eric, in the event of a counter trend signal, and you come back with a trend signal, would you be more inclined to tighten the trade? All right, so let's say we took this number 2 signal here, and we risk it down there, and then we come back in a moment with a number 3 signal right here. I think as a habit, as a rule of thumb, I tend not to take the full exposure on a counter trend trade because it is counter trend. By definition, a counter trend trade is going to be a lot riskier than a with trend trade. So I think the first thing I would do is I would dial down the risk amount, or maybe just put a single on there. So rather than risking, $340 or $350, I'd be risking only 1%. I would treat it the same way though, Peter. If I had good reason to think the market was going to reverse, and then it starts to get knocked down here, you can see the buyers tried to buy the market up. This particular bar had a little bit of a wick to it. If you were anxious on the trade and you thought, oh, the bottom's going to fall out, I'm just going to take my stop out up here, then that would be the bar that you want to do it on. But in practice, I would probably just see if the buyers can bring the market back. Well, they brought it back here for a bar, so this would be the time to roll it now. And then, of course, if I didn't roll it on this bar, I would have rolled it on this bar. We've had 1, 2, 3 attempts to recover the market, to turn the market bullish again. Right? There's buying. We've got a wick on here. We've got a full bull bar. We've got another very pronounced wick. So yeah, I suppose I would become a little bit more sensitive to the possibility of tighter stop, and then it would have been stopped out here. But you see the buying continues. If I didn't roll here, I certainly would consider rolling here, or for the extra $40, I would just leave the stop here. And then we eventually get stopped out. So we have just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bull bars before, oh, actually a couple more, 9, 10, 11 bull bars before the market finally folds and heads the other way. Yeah, I suppose I would, Peter. I suppose I would get a little bit more aggressive with my stop if I got a with trend signal. Steven's asking, do we have anything going on here on the Hawk? That's the one I'm focusing on. Well, we got a little bit of a jumbled mess here. We do have a green bar sell. I don't think I would go in for the full amount, but if you wanted to throw a trade on there, I think it's looking like a move lower could be the result. At least from the news headlines, it does not appear that the market is all that bullish on what Yellen might be announcing. So that could put a little bit of a wrinkle in the month-long rally that we've been seeing in the NASDAQ and the stock markets in general. There's no question the market is very balanced. There's no question it's very quiet. I'm the kind of guy, when in doubt, short. It seems the market will be more inclined to head lower without too much news or you don't really need to push the market to go lower. See, speaking of which, okay, here's the eagle now. We're getting going to get a possible with trend signal, getting a little bit of a sloppy trend change signal on the falcon. This is a hard edge bounce coming here on the Raptor, in case you were curious. The clouds are mixed up a little bit, that's why it's not printing a hard edge bounce. You could even treat it as an OCO order. Just say, okay, well, here's our whole range. We can buy above, sell below. Oops, come back here. It's not a bad idea to take it on a second push here as well, because there is going to be a reaction down here. That's almost a given. Hit our profit target or our break even, and it looks like we're going to tag our profit target as well. Come on, get down there. There we go. Hooray. And it looks like they may have finally picked a direction. So here's our eagle signal. There's the green bar sell that we were looking at in the hawk. The sloppy trend change signal here in the falcon, and then of course the hard edge bounce in the Raptor. Okay, I'm just making a few notes here in my trade journal. Ooh, they're really getting some traction now. Look at them go. Oh, see, darn it, I was in manual mode. How'd that happen? I bet you I would have been able to take 2 contracts. Oh, I would have too. Oh well, not the first move I would have missed, and certainly will not be the last. I know I'm stating the obvious, but there's always um, a degree of uncertainty with every trade. So, like I said, all you can do is just try to protect yourself. If you see a signal, here's our first in sync signal of the day. All right, so let's take it. Do your best to protect yourself. Don't risk more than you can afford. They're trying. See, at this point, now that we're hesitating down here, I don't want it to become a test of the extreme and reverse and stop me out. So, because this bar has got a little bit of a wick to it, I would consider rolling my stops in. If I get stopped out, well, at least I still save $100. If I were walking down the street and I saw a $100 bill or 250s laying on the sidewalk, there's a pretty good chance I would stop and pick it up. So this is a $100 bill laying on the sidewalk. Are you going to stop and get it? Or are you going to let the wind blow it away and pick up a $5 bill instead? Um, Good question. Christian asks, sometimes 2 or 3 dots appear in a row on a raptor chart. Does that mean that the direction is starting to change? Let's go take a look. So here we've got a couple of warning dots. Here, I'm going to make these a little easier to see. Warning dot. Let's make it a pretty, yellow-green. That'll be nice and bright. And the triangle. How does that look? Oh yeah, okay, that's nice and bright. We'll go with that. All right, so we're starting to print a bunch of warning dots. Does that mean the market is about to reverse on itself? No, not necessarily. Again, all it means is that there's certain parameters being met in the algorithms that are working behind the scenes. If we get the warning dots coupled with the price structure, then I think it would be more likely that we're going to see a reversal. but just because we may be printing a couple of warning dots, like if we started printing some green warning dots through here, would I expect the market to reverse? No, not necessarily. Not until we got that test of the extreme, the failure, then I would anticipate the market to head the other direction. Here's a little helpful hint for you. When you have your chart set up the way that you like it, save it. Save your template. And, call it whatever. Here, I'm gonna give this a new name. There we go. It's gonna be my Raptor 2. And now, when you load a new chart, you can simply impose your template on it, and it will make the whole process much easier. Okay, so it looks like we've traded down now to the median line on our support and resistance suite. We're seeing a little bit of a reaction there. Which is also characteristic of a sideways kind of trading day. We've got a number one signal producing now, and we should see some follow through on that. That's here on the Raptor. We are near the overnight lows, so a second push opportunity would be a nice way to get in. Problem I'm having with this signal is I've got to cover the trade way up here. Other than that, it's probably not that bad of a signal. You can see from the width of some of these bars, though, that we are getting a lot of trading going on in this area. Here's the hawk now on crude oil. We're working something resembling a three-arrow consolidation. Oops, that's the beauty of trading crude oil. So expensive. So with most markets, the NASDAQ, the YM, the E-mini, we would be looking for a four-arrow consolidation. Crude oil and gold tend to only give you three. On that third signal, that's when the market is likely to rally. No? All right. Well, that's been crude oil lately. Put that one on the shelf. There they go. I was expecting maybe a four-arrow consolidation here out of the hawk. We may get it yet. We may get like a macro pullback. Yeah, it looks like the market setting up for some bad news. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Yeah, like Tony says, definite maybe. Well, you know, whenever economists are involved, they thrive on bad news because it's safe, right? If they make a prediction, and I always hate it when they use the R word because it makes everybody panic. But if they say, "Oh, the economy's heading into a recession," well, it will do one of two things. If the economy is truly slowing down, then they say, "Oh, see, I told you so." But then it also becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? If some noted economist says the economy is slowing down, then people may become more conservative in their spending. Uh, they may not, choose to start that new business, whatever. And there too, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the economist says, "See, I told you so." If the economist is wrong and the economy is still good and brisk and everything, well, then nobody cares what the economist said. But if the economist says, oh no, skies are blue, uh, it's all rosy, smooth sailing ahead, and then something happens that the economy slows down, well, then the economist is on the hook. Hey, you told us things were going to be really good, and look what happened. So the safe bet for an economist is always doom and gloom. You should bear that in mind whenever you hear an economist speak about anything. They will always give you the worst case scenario. Just like engineers, here in British Columbia, there's we live in a strata type environment. Uh, so the government has mandated that stratas need to have a depreciation plan, and that it's supposed to be done by a professional. So an architect, an engineer. Of course, I seem to think that this is a make-work project for architects and engineers because they charge exorbitant fees to tell you that your 30-year fiberglass shingles on your roof only have a 15-year life. Why do they do that when the shingles are warranted for 30 years? Because it's the architect's and the engineer's reputation on the line. So they will give everything a half-life. Bear that in mind if you're ever dealing with an architect or an engineer. That their reputation is all they have to go on. And so if, never mind that the steel roof on your house is warranted for 50 years, it's only good for 25. 25 years, you'll have to replace the roof, according to an engineer. If your fiberglass shingles are warranted for 30 years, you'll have to replace it in 15. I don't care what the warranty says. I'm an engineer. So economists, engineers, architects, it's safe for them to always be doom and gloom. I don't envy Janet Yellen's position because she's the one who actually has to say, oh no, the skies are blue, grass is green, everything's full speed ahead. And of course, if she's wrong, well then she pays for it. But even there, they'll be leaning toward the side that says, if things are slowing down, it's always a safer bet. Those kinds of economics were always above me. Oh yeah, Tony says strata? Oh yeah. I'm not pushing a lawnmower. Are you kidding me? Alright, well, nothing going on here yet. Might be getting a 4-arrow consolidation here. Oh, see, here comes that macro pullback. Oh, flash just for a moment. Oh, there we go. Oh, a little bit of a macro pullback signaling now. Oh, no, there it goes again. Well, they're very indecisive here. Might see a little bit of a pullback, maybe try to recover some of this big move lower. Oh, sorry. Tony says, what's a strata? Sorry, I just assumed everybody knew what a strata was. A strata is when a most typical form of a strata is a condominium, where you share the property among however many owners, 20 owners, 100 owners, whatever. Here in British Columbia, some of the properties are zoned as strata lots. And one of the largest strata lots has 250 houses on it. It's about a 100-acre development. It has its own golf course and 100, like I say, about 250 single-family homes, and some of these homes are quite large. But the property itself is jointly owned by those 250 owners. So that those 250 owners are responsible. It's a gated community, so they're responsible for their common fees. They've got swimming pools and security guards and road maintenance and that kind of stuff, and those costs would all be shared equally among each of the owners. If you were living in a condominium, then again, you would be responsible for the costs associated with the landscaping, the insurance, the electricity, and so on and so forth. So where I live, it happens to be one of those types of properties. It's not zoned single family, it's zoned as a strata. Now ours is a smaller one. There's only 30 units here. And it's a nice little community. Everybody gets along. Yeah, like Francisco says, it's like condos in the US. Yeah, condos, townhouses. Very often those are strata type communities. Here in British Columbia, they also extend sometimes to single family dwellings, depending on the zoning. We do things a little differently sometimes. Not always in a good way. Yes, probably the largest one that, actually there's a couple. Arbutus Ridge is probably the biggest one here on the South Island. They've got beautiful views of the strait looking east toward Vancouver, and it's quite pretty. That's the one that has the 250 homes. There's quite a few very expensive properties in there. Just gorgeous views of the ocean and the Gulf Islands. And then up island, there's another one called Crown Isle, also a golf course community on a strata. I think that one's even bigger than the Arbutus Ridge one. Arbutus Ridge, also a very nice golf course associated with the strata community. Well, they are trying here to put in a little bit of rally. Oh, good to know. Jeff says, here in California, we call them community associations, whether they are single family or condos. With the cost of real estate getting more and more expensive, a lot of times that's the only way that some people can afford to get into the housing market is via a strata, by splitting up the cost of the real estate among several owners. And it makes sense for the developer too, because he can get a little bit extra. Steven says, what do you guys do in Canada? Get together on the weekends and discuss different techniques for sharpening axes while drinking Molson's beer? You know, I'm not I'm not picking on anybody here, please. I know most of the people in the room are Americans. I'm not picking on Americans. I love the States. We visit often. But you guys are very provincial in your thinking. I was dealing with a fellow in Lincoln, Nebraska, and no word of a lie, he said to me, I don't know, I can't imagine what life is like for you in Canada. Like, do you have roads and cars? And I said, are you serious? Are you pulling my leg, or are you serious? He was dead serious. He really thought we lived in igloos and ate seal meat. No, sorry. It's not like that. If you go now, admittedly, if you go far enough north, you will still find Inuit. They don't live in igloos anymore. They do have houses and heat and electricity. At the time, I was still living in Victoria, and I told him Victoria is consistently rated as one of the 10 nicest cities in the world. And he'd never heard of it. And I sent him pictures of Victoria and stuff, and he could not wrap his head around it. Funny thing is, I've never been to Lincoln, Nebraska, but I can tell you exactly what Lincoln, Nebraska is like because I grew up in the heart of the prairies, and I guarantee you it was not unlike Lincoln, Nebraska. So it's it's kind of funny. Yeah, like Tony says, you can Google Earth it. Here, I'll even send you to the Victoria website. Here we go. There you go. It's Victoria's a great little city. It's gotten a little bit big for my tastes. I was always been a small town boy, but when we first moved to the island about 30 years ago, there were only about 150,000 people in Victoria, and even now, there's very few tall buildings. There's a few taller apartment buildings that have cropped up over the years, but no real high rises. It's not like what you would find in Vancouver or Seattle or any major city, Toronto. It still has very much a small town feel to it. And then I live just about 30 miles up island, 30 miles north from Victoria, in the Cowichan Valley, named after the Cowichan Indian tribe. There's actually 6 tribes that refer to themselves as the Cowichan Band. And here's, for those of you who are interested, there's everything you want to know about the Cowichan Valley. Oh yes, maybe we should get back to some trading. Tony says he's long on the 6E. The stock market's still very, very quiet. I think we're going to see, like I say, a little bit of a pullback here. Nothing I really want to get too anxious to buy. Crude oil did finally follow through and give us a little bit of a rally. Yeah, that's right. Jeff says Cowichan sweaters. That's what one of the things we're known for. They still hand knit Cowichan sweaters. They're very warm. Yeah, so here we've got now the soft edge buy signal forming. This one might be a little bit easier to take, only in that we can control the risk a little better, right? I wouldn't take 2 contracts on this because it is counter trend. Oh, it looks like quite a few of you have already visited here. I've got some comments. A lot of you folks have been up here toward British Columbia. Yeah, Todd says, don't feel bad, Eric. My wife and I live in Southern California, and when we visited my grandmother in Seattle, we took a catamaran over to British Columbia and stayed at bed and breakfast. Yeah, that was probably the Victoria Clipper. They offer some really good deals. Like, if you want to go from Victoria to see a Mariners baseball game, they've got packages and whatnot, and it's like a hour's catamaran ride, boat ride into Seattle. Seattle's a great city too. Ah, nice. Yeah, Christian says he lives in Vienna, Austria, which is one of the nicest towns in the world. Yeah, Vienna looks beautiful. I've never been, but it looks like a lovely city. Okay, the only problem with our long position here is that, or here, before I give you the answer, what is the problem with our long position here? What do we think might happen? Oh, look at this. We got 6 degrees of separation going on here. Tony says, my wife was born in Linz, Austria. Yes, very good. Well done. Rod is the first to nail it here. He says, we haven't had a retest of the extreme. Absolutely correct, Rod. So I'm going to hold my stop back a little bit here in case the market tries to retest. Before it gets to my profit objective. As we get closer to my profit target, if we get closer to my profit target, I will become more aggressive with my stops, or maybe even just take profit. You might be right, Ryman. Ryman says, I believe the market's going to go down. We're getting very close to this resistance area that's kind of, well, the big resistance line is up here. 53.65. Near the highs of the days, we have a resistance line just above it, 53.66. We're about to encounter the primary, which is also going to be pretty influential. That was kind of the lows of the morning. But we'll see whether or not we can't press through that. Okay, so I'm just scribbling a few notes here. Steve asks here, I want to ask a serious question. In Los Angeles, it rains about 10 days per year. How much rain do you get? Oh, we get a lot. Um, it doesn't, people are usually surprised to learn that the Pacific Northwest, although technically it's deemed a rainforest, that doesn't mean that the whole area gets soaked. For instance, in Washington State, um, at the end of the Olympic Peninsula, where you're facing the Pacific Ocean, they get a lot of rain and heavy rain. It's like here on Vancouver Island, we have the community of Tofino, which is out on the west coast of Vancouver Island, the Carmana Valley. Those are the rainforest parts, and they will get a lot of rain. Here, it typically rains. Well, the rainy season extends from about November through to March. February is usually pretty nice, except for this February it was a little abnormally cold. We'll usually get about a week or maybe two where there's some snow, but snow rarely amounts to more than a few inches. Except one year where we got about 6 feet of snow in 2 days. And needless to say, that ground all the city to a halt because we just don't have the snow removal equipment. I do remember one winter where it rained almost every day through the month of, I think it was December, but it was a warm rain. It wasn't a cold, biting rain, you know, the one that kind of soaks you to the bone. But it did rain almost every day. People are usually surprised to learn that Boston gets more rain than Seattle. However, we have more cloudy days. So it may not necessarily be raining, but the sun may not be shining either. We get a lot of cloudy weather. All right, buyers, where are you? Come on. Yeah, see, now we're getting that number 3 signal, that with trend signal. So the buyers really got to step it up now. And if you're considering this number 3 signal, here's a nice second push opportunity. You can try to take it below the low of that bar. Oops, come on. Steve says, regarding my rain and cloudy comment, ugh. Yeah, well, you know, if you're living in Southern California, you would be used to the sunshine and the dry weather, but really it's not that hard to take. But it's, you know, again, it's what you're used to. It's my cousin who still lives in central Alberta, where, you know, the temperatures can be biting cold on a winter's day. But the skies will be clear blue, like crystal clear blue. And he says, you know, I will take a cold, sunny day over a warm, cloudy day. I'm the opposite. I don't like to be cold, so I'll take a warm, cloudy day. Come on, get up there. Temperature-wise, our temperatures don't vary that much seasonally. It's not like the rest of Canada. Uh, Now I'm going to quote you these temperatures in centigrade, and then I'll give you rough approximations in Fahrenheit. But in the summer, a hot summer's day will be low 30s, which would be high 80s, low 90s. There are parts, even here on the island, where the temperature will occasionally hit 40 degrees, which would be about 100 degrees. Those temperatures are not sustained, of course. We'll get it for, if we get a week of weather like that, that would be very, very hot for us because it tends to be cooler. Not a lot of people have air conditioning here. In the winter, temperatures will get down around zero, which will be 32, so 32 Fahrenheit, so around freezing. Occasionally, it will dip. Um, a really cold day on Vancouver Island would be like minus 10, which would probably be about 20 Fahrenheit. But even there, those temperatures don't last for more than a day or two, and I don't remember the last time it got that cold here. Now, in Alberta, we always used to say we got 8 months of winter and 4 months of sweat. So, on more than one occasion, the town I grew up in, Leduc, Alberta, the heart of the oil patch, was the coldest place on the planet. It was even colder than Antarctica. And I do believe on one of those days I had to work outside. But we only worked in 10-minute shifts, then we had to go get warmed up again. But there the temperatures would make wild swings. My cousin, who prefers the cold and the sunshine, his birthday is end of April, and I remember on more than one occasion we'd be having a snowball fight on his birthday because there would be fresh snow. And then in May, we used to have this big May tree in our yard. Well, it's still there at my dad's house. And by mid-May, the tree would be in full bloom and it would be 30 degrees or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So really crazy temperature swings sometimes on the prairies. Not so much here. The temperature from winter to summer varies only about 30 degrees. All right, come on. We need the big push now to get through here. Oh, Peter's still short the number one here. Yeah, here's the, well, if you haven't already rolled your stops above this number three, Peter, that would be a good spot to do it. Because if we break out through here now, obviously you're going to be on the wrong side of the trade. Yeah, that's funny. Jeff says, short anecdote here. There's a Reader's Digest article about a woman freaking out on a bus in Portland when the sun broke through after 65 consecutive days of no sunshine. It's funny, you get used to the cloud cover, and then when the sun does come through, you really do notice it. Everybody's looking, what's that bright object in the sky? Yeah. Jeff says, here in New England, we have 4 seasons: early winter, winter, late winter, and fix the roads for winter. Yeah. Yes, I can relate to that. Well, yeah, on the Atlantic side, you guys get some really wicked weather too. My goodness. Oh, here's Dan interjecting a trading question again. Dan asks, would you have considered the red bar warning dot followed by a yellow signal, a red bar buy on the hawk? Yeah, Francisco's showing off now. He says it's shorts weather all year in Florida. Yes, definitely, Daniel. So long as one of the bars are not yellow, you're okay. So yes, this is definitely a red bar buy. This is definitely a green bar sell. Again, because it's counter trend, you have the ability to cover your trade a little better because you know absolutely where to bail on this trade. So if you get brought in and the market reverses and stops you out down here, well then you are definitely on the wrong side of the trade equation. Getting a late filter entry here on the Falcon as well, so might get a little bit of the bullish pushback here. We do have to get above this little swing high at 53, 55, 56 area, get us above the hard edge. All right, well, they're kind of dragging their feet a little bit. I think we'll button up the trade room for the week, and we'll get together again on Monday. Hope you have a nice weekend. Mine's going to be a little bit busier than I like, but it's all fun stuff. So we'll talk to you Monday. Bye for now.